Welcome to another edition of the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul Delegre, your host, and my guest today is actually a good friend of mine, Leon Verriere. He's an IT leader here in the Dallas area, and we go way back for probably 15, 20 years now. How you doing this morning, Leon?
I'm doing great, Paul. Happy to be here with you.
Well, thanks. I know we've talked about this for a while, trying to get you on the show, and
we have. I had some hesitancy there.
Yeah.
Not sure if I wanted to be on a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. In 100% of the time, everyone who comes on like you, that's a little hesitant, always is like afterwards saying, hey, it was a really positive experience. So I would almost guarantee this is going to be the same for you.
All right.
Cool. So the reason why I had you on today, we've talked about this, different management styles and leadership styles as it specifically relates to the IT world. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's I know we've had many lunches and golf outings where we've had plenty of time to talk about these kinds of things. I think over my 20 plus career of managing infrastructure teams, I've kind of developed my own personal management creed, like I like to call it. So it's kind of it's really easy to convey to to new teams when when you move into a new situation or you're trying to build something that hasn't been there before. So
so is this something that you've kind of developed over time, and is it something that you've got down on paper that you actually have a philosophy and a strategy? When you take over a new team, it's not like you're just throwing balls up in the air. You've got an actual plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's I think most leaders, what I found, it doesn't really matter whether you're in IT or any other type of department, right? It's they kind of have their standard playbook that they bring in, the things that they're going to do, right? So
sure.
For me, the important thing is really kind of trying to establish a really good basis of trust with the team you're inheriting, and then also that also works moving up the chain as well. So with your management structure. So
cool. Well, tell me a little bit about your personal philosophy and how you do this. I think I saw you in some of your notes you sent me. It's called Creed. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, so it's I like to think it's really easy for most people to understand, right? And it Creed just makes it easy for everybody to remember, like the 5 points of it, which are consistency, and then responsibility, empowerment, encouragement, and development, right? And so,
got it.
What I like to do is, when I first meet with the team, and then periodically throughout the, as you establish one-on-ones and you're having team building exercises, you just try to reinforce the fact that really, it's about living this creed and not, not necessarily, it's not really a one-time action.
Right. Yeah, and that takes time. Like anything, building trust and getting your people to trust you isn't something that happens day one.
No, absolutely. And what I've found is that really the you can say that you trust somebody all day, but ultimately the key to establishing trust, especially when you're taking over a new team, is really be vulnerable. And that's really, the really effective leaders are the ones who can be vulnerable with their team and show that they actually have a human side in addition to in addition to the fact that we're going to be dealing with technology all the time, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's a big one. Because I think the leaders that come in with a heavy hand and act like they know everything doesn't work.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I mean, there is a time and a place for, some sort of things that are, kind of metric focused or, kind of command and control. But when dealing with people, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work effectively.
Yeah, that's always been, and I've had several folks on to discuss leadership. I had military folks, I had people that wrote books and sales leadership and all that. And I've never understood that philosophy of like, I'm going to grind on my team as hard as I can and squeeze every last drop out of them. And I just don't, I think you'll get short term results with that, but I don't see how you can get long term results because you're just going to lose people.
Yeah, and I think that's for me the importance of kind of when you're talking about the creed philosophy is really um, giving people the ability to be empowered to make decisions,
Right.
right? And then as a leader, when you trust that your people have the ability to make good decisions, you're actually freed to work on the things that are going to help propel what the group needs to do forward even more, right? Because
Yeah.
when you establish that trust, it really moves you into a new level of becoming. And I've talked with lots of people about creating high performing teams. When I was with Mohawk, when you and I first met,
Yep.
I actually did some help develop the training and deliver the training to the IT leadership around Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Yep.
And that leadership model, that high performance model, team model that he has really served me well through my career.
Yeah. I mean, think about at the end of the day, you want your team to feel good about themselves, right?
Yeah, you do.
So at the end of the day, they come away saying, hey, man, my boss, Leon, treats me great. Yeah, we have some difficult conversations once in a while, but he's very respectful. He motivates me. He has my back. And those are the type of people, they'll run through a wall for you
E-
ultimately.
Exactly. And that's basically I think where the philosophy comes from is that, like if people feel like they have a boss who's encouraging them and not discouraging them, right? Like why did you do that incorrectly? Where you're more inquisitive about, well, why did you not think of this? Or is there a way that we could have done those things differently
Yeah.
to achieve a different result? It's a very different conversation rather than don't do that again, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. The whole blame game, finger pointing, doesn't work. I mean, like, hey, none of us are perfect. We all say and do things we regret sometimes. I'm not immune to it. You're not immune to it. Uh, but as long as you recognize, like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that, because, right?
and there's okay that I mean that's a even when you do make those mistakes, even as a leader, that's a really good opportunity for you to say, hey, look, I messed up, right? I shouldn't have done that. Um,
Yeah.
and I think companies that recognize when employees make mistakes and they don't chastise for them for it, but actually use it as a growth opportunity to say, hey, well, maybe this is something we can look at developing further, right? Or this might be an area where you need to kind of grow as a person. Those are the people that are going to stick around for a long time,
Yeah.
and we know how much it costs to bring employees on and get rid of people, and it's really one of those things that really does affect the bottom line that
Yeah.
most companies don't even think about, how many people they're bringing in and how many people they're losing based on bad management.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. I see it. So I'm on the sales side of technology, right? So I know all the major manufacturers. I've worked for a few of them. And the turnover is just insane. So what I don't understand is, okay, you've got a guy who you hired and he certainly has the qualifications, but you put him in a rough spot because you're giving him a patch with maybe not a lot of customers, can't make any money, and you grind on him to produce, and then he quits. So
Yeah,
my theory is, okay, if you have a good guy, why not invest in him instead of giving him 3 months to be up and running, and then you're going to go on to the next one. And like you said, the amount of money it costs to onboard someone, right, and then
yep,
the 6 month ramp up time, it has never made sense to me.
yeah. And I think those are the companies that are really recognize that and are investing in the people that they have and bringing in people who have the kind of qualities that they're looking for. They may not have all the skills you need them to have, but they have the right kind of um, internal personality, the things that you want them to be, like a really good team player,
Yeah,
somebody who doesn't have all of the answers, right? You want somebody who is willing to learn. You want
that's right.
somebody who is at the same time also understands how to navigate the emotions and
Yeah.
the different types of personalities that they're going to deal with in the business world. That's ultimately what are really the good people who join your organization. You're like, these are the people that I want on my team,
Yeah, that's
right?
a great point. I mean, you can always, you know, train someone with some skills, but sometimes that innate personality, that innate, being a good person, being a good coworker, sometimes you can't teach those things.
Yeah, no, it's much harder. It is possible to have people change, but the difficult thing is when you're in a managerial role, trying to get someone to change when they don't trust you is impossible. That
Right.
is that is absolutely, there will never ever be a chance, because you will never be heard by them if they don't trust you and they don't
Yeah.
feel safe in their job and they don't feel like you're actually trying to develop them into the best person that they can be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So
that's why when I look for people who are going to be joining my organization, skills are important. Yes, I would like you to have a certain amount of skills, but really I'm looking for, how are you going to deal with the difficult situations? How are you going to interact with the existing people, or
yeah.
that are already on the team, right? And sometimes things don't go the way you expect, right?
Yeah.
Somebody did they those that interview process. I'll just tell you, sometimes it's just not perfect. And
Yeah.
when you
No,
get
no doubt.
people in, it just doesn't, and you're like, well, maybe I made a mistake there. So,
Yeah. So what do you do? Something just came to mind because I've heard this recently. You take over a team, and there's someone on the team that thinks he should have had your job.
yeah, so it's a unique situation in the fact that what I found is I try to help them understand why they don't want my job, right? And really try to help them differentiate, because in most cases, if it's somebody who's there, they're probably in, like a senior team leader kind of role, and they feel like, oh, I want to make the jump to management. I want to manage people, because that's what I feel like is the only path that I
Right.
have forward, right? If I want to make more money, I've got to move into management. But that's not always true, and it's especially not true in the technology field, right? There
Right.
are there are senior level architects that make the same amount of money that managers and directors and that make at large organizations, because they understand that they are really good at doing technical things,
Right.
and if they have somebody who is their supervisor, who understands that this is a person who doesn't want to manage people, but they are really good at doing technical things.
Yeah.
So when you inherit somebody like that, I will just tell you, in my opinion, it's really, what you try to do is help them understand, if you want to be in management, we can we can absolutely move you in that direction if that's what you feel like you want to do. But here's the things that you're going to have to do, right? You're going to have to fire people. You're going to have to motivate people. You're going to have to tell people that they're not going to get bonuses, right? So there's all of these things that
Yeah.
don't have anything to do with the technical that you're going to be doing now. And if you're okay with wanting to do those things, just know that all that technical stuff, you're not going to be doing that anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
I know you raised
go
some
ahead.
great points, by the way, about just all the negative stuff that goes along with being a manager, right?
Right.
Uh,
Well, it's just different. It's a different job, right? We always promote the most successful technology people into management because we think that's what they need to do. If I'm good at a job, then I'm going to uh, I'm going to make you in charge of all of the people who are doing that job. And it's just a really hard transition to make for technology people, because they prefer technology and not the people part of it. Because humans are messy and computers are not. They just do what they're told, right?
yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
exactly. No, it's a great point. I mean, and I think the other aspect of people moving into management like that is now you got to deal with people's feelings and emotions, and
yep,
if you're a zeros and ones guy, that may be a reach for you.
it
You
it
know.
is. And so I have had people before who are like, man, I really should have gotten that job. And it does take a while, because you can't just immediately go in and say, oh, well, no, you're just not qualified, because that basically just shuts them down, right?
Right.
So I've been in that situation before. I've also been in a situation where they have, taking somebody out of that role because they were, moving me in, right? Just because it wasn't a good fit. Because the good companies are the ones that recognize, hey, we're going to give this guy a shot. If it doesn't work, then we're gonna we're gonna need to make a change. Now, it doesn't mean that that employee still doesn't have value. We just need to make sure that they get put in the role that they can be really successful.
Correct.
Um,
You
you
took the
know,
words right out of my mouth, right?
exactly.
We all have a skill set, right? And some people, like the leadership roles, some people don't. I mean, and I've seen them. Some people just say, I don't want to manage people. I just recently had a conversation with a guy who was in a leadership position at a company, and he said, I realized this was the first time, young guy, he goes, I don't want to manage people anymore. So it was kudos to him for recognizing
Absolutely.
that he just doesn't want to manage people. He just wants to get in the trenches and get on the keyboard, help customers, or whatever it might be.
Exactly. I mean, in my career, I've gone back and forth. So I have actually I moved into an individual contributor role after managing teams for a lot of years, and I did that for several years. And but then I really started to miss it. Right.
Yeah,
I like the managing of the individuals. I like to see them succeed. I like to see somebody move from working on a help desk to moving into a systems administrator role and then maybe into a network architect, right? That
sure.
for me, that developing people is really kind of what I feel like is one of those things that I've figured out in developing this creed that works, right?
Yeah.
I've had success stories of for many of the places that I've been.
Yeah, and that must be really rewarding when you see someone grow from, like you said, just a help desk person all the way up to network admin and maybe even manage a network team.
Yeah, yeah, no, I will tell you I have had the pleasure of working with people at other companies, and one of my good friends who I hired at the last place that I was, he moved from kind of developing software into a help desk manager role, and he's been really, really successful because he was ready to make the move from
Yeah,
doing consulting type work and developing service management tools to really kind of helping to develop people. Um, but it does take time, right?
yeah,
It's as people mature, they also um, get a little more forgiving of things,
yeah.
right? Um, and that's just part of the maturity process as you've been a leader for some time.
Yeah, it's funny. You got me thinking about different conversations I've had with people. And just recently, I had a conversation with a guy who's like 40 years old, but is still an individual contributor, right? He's on the keyboard every day. And we had the same conversation. Okay, what do you want to do? Because you're at that age where, do you want to be fat fingering the rest of your life? Right.
Right.
And, you got to make that decision. And that's okay if he does. But what happens is you look up, you're 50 years old and you've never had a leadership position. And now you're like, oh, crap, I missed a boat.
Yeah. No, I mean
Yeah.
it is. And from my perspective, if that's what he wants to do,
Yeah.
I think you let him do that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I I think for far too long, companies have said, well, we need to continue to move people through the organization, right? But a lot of times you don't if that's
Right.
not really what they want to do, right? So I think this dialogue between employees and managers to really understand about when you're younger in your career, yes, you are probably wanting to get advanced as quickly as possible, right? You
Right.
want to be promoted every so often, right? And but as you get to a particular place where you're comfortable
Yep.
and you like what you're doing and you're good at it, then why would a manager want to upset that? I
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so it does take all different kinds of people to make a team, right? You do have to have those people who are kind of rock steady, who are just gonna you just know that they're going to continue to deliver,
Yep.
and you don't have to make them into something that they're not, right?
Yeah, completely agree. So, kind of switching back to your creed here.
Sure.
So, do you have like a framework, that you use to effectively manage your technical teams? Is there something like, do you meet with them once a week, once a day, once a month? How do you maintain this level of leadership and trust with your teams?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but I think you know, harkening back to talking about consistency, is I really like to establish the fact that we are going to have you know, biweekly or monthly one-on-ones where we meet as individuals, and we just talk about the things that are important to you. Now, some of those can be work related and some of them might not be work related.
Yeah,
That's okay, right?
yeah,
you know um, I, I think the importance of really the one-on-one being controlled by the employee so that they know that I have a consistent time when I'm going to talk to my boss. I know that it's going to be every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every
yep,
month, right? And I can also, it doesn't preclude something like, say, when something goes wrong and you don't get an expected outcome. That is not something, you might reinforce things
yep.
based on, you know, how we have taken corrective action, but I don't think the annual review period that most companies have is the time to bring up things that happened 8 months
Eight
ago.
months ago. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Great point.
so I think that's probably the most critical piece, and I think the another thing that I don't think that a lot of managers do today is to really take time out to get together as an entire team and do ongoing type team building discussion of goals or OKRs or whatever the things are that you establish at the beginning of the year, and then if you don't ever review them, then how do you know you actually achieve them? So,
Yeah,
so I think that provides an opportunity for you to review those types of things, and then provide training about what are things that are happening in the industry, or things related to customer service, or things related to how you interact with people, emotional intelligence, or
yep.
um, what are things that we can do to make us a better, more high performing team. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, and there's no mystical, magical answer to that either, because, like you said, everyone has different values, different likes, different dislikes.
Yep.
So, how did you formulate all these things? Did this something that just over time you've assembled all this, or just form? Because I'm always interested in these types of things, because this didn't happen overnight.
No, it did not. So I mean, when you get your first managerial job, I mean, obviously you don't really know anything about anything, but
Yeah,
I did have a really good mentor when I was at Mohawk, and he moved me through several managerial jobs in infrastructure, and really kind of helped me solidify kind of what I would say are the beginnings of this, right?
yeah,
There were also a couple of other managers, senior managers, people who are directors and VPs now, that we kind of all grew up together and kind of figured out what are the things that are important to us, right? So it was a lot of, I would say, the beginnings of it were really about what I would consider on the job training type
sure.
stuff. Like we
Yep,
were like, well, this works or that works, or we don't really like this that we've seen. And then I think for me, the big transition was probably when I left Mohawk and started to kind of go off to other companies. Right, I went to Saputo, the dairy processing company, and kind of started to begin to put all of this on paper. Like, what are the things that are really important? Um,
yep,
so and then after there are some things that come along that you just with the onset of the internet, there's tons of people out there who are providing this type of leadership advice.
we're all over the
You,
place.
there, and so there is a lot of that I would say that for the most part I look at and I'm like, well, I could take that piece, or
Sure.
um, I'm a really big fan of Simon Sinek and the Optimism Company. I think they do a lot of really good stuff. I do think that there's a lot of value in, and I think he and I have a lot of the same values as far as how we manage our teams. So he's definitely had a lot of influence on kind of how I've developed this philosophy. And then
Yeah.
most recently, I think the one thing that I mentioned to you is the book Unreasonable Hospitality,
Okay.
by
Tell me a
Will
little bit about
Duarte.
that.
Yeah, so I I think for a long time, in working in service management and IT and infrastructure, we were always kind of told that customer service was the most important thing, and you got to provide good customer service. Like you need to make sure that people's problems are taken care of and that sort of thing. But really, that book kind of opened up for me that really customer service is not really where it's at, and in the role that I've been in most recently, the what I've found is that people really want you to be, now from an IT perspective, they want you to be hospitable.
Right.
They want you to understand um, that they're having a problem, but they also want you to help them and help them understand why this problem occurred, and are there things I can do to prevent this from happening again, or why did this happen to me? Is this something that I did? Is it something
Yeah.
that you did? Is it something that some vendor did? They want to hear the story about why I'm having this problem, and why did it not just work the way that I intuitively thought it was going to work.
Yeah. Very nice. So I had a thought, by the way. Just came to me right this second. Is there a maybe a book in your future? Because I think that this sounds like it's heading that direction. What do you think?
I don't, I doubt it very seriously, Paul, that I'll ever do that. But maybe when I retire.
Yeah. Well, you said you'd never be on a podcast, and look what you're doing
I
today. So
know. Yeah, there you
you
go.
know,
It
yeah,
happened. There's a
yeah,
first time for everything.
yeah. Well, you never say never. I never thought I'd be a podcast host a few years ago, and here I am. I think I'm getting close to 100 episodes. So it's been a fun journey, and you never say never, right?
Absolutely.
You
So,
know. So what lies ahead for you? What's in your future, Leon?
I'm looking for the next opportunity to really turn a technology team around.
Yeah,
So, that'll probably be where I'll end up somewhere else, probably in some other vertical I haven't ever been in before.
yeah.
So,
Well, the one thing about verticals is computers don't know what business you're in.
they don't, and
You know,
they don't care. But
they
you see, the thing is that IT people are pretty much the same everywhere, right?
yeah.
And they all really want the same thing. So, and
Well,
customers and clients want the same thing too, right? They just want to be taken care of. So,
yeah, no doubt. Well, I've known you a long time, and I don't know if I've ever said this to you before. You always struck me as an even keel type person. And I always thought that was a great quality to have. And I'll tell you why I say that. I've been in several different organizations, and the ones that always were effective, the ones, to my opinion, were the ones that they don't let the highs get them too high, they don't let the lows get them too low, and when things go bad, they scream and yell. And then I like stability in a
yeah,
leader, and you always struck me. Like we've talked about, we've been friends a long time. I've seen you in action. We've golfed in many different settings, and you're always even keel. And I think that's a great quality for a leader to have.
yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's always good feedback.
yeah, yeah. I'm more of a hothead, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd be a great leader, but I think I have good instincts. But you know, being an Italian,
But you're a great salesman.
being an
That's the
Italian guy from the Northeast, I have a little shorter fuse than most people.
so true,
So,
so
so
true. But that's okay.
yeah,
We're still friends anyway.
that's right. In spite of it all, and speaking of that, we got to get out and golf.
Yeah, no,
Very soon.
we'll definitely have to do that.
Yeah, we'll
So,
talk.
it's getting kind of hot in Dallas though now. So,
Yeah, it is.
we might have to wait till after the summer.
Well, and are you a basketball fan, by the way? I don't know if I ever knew this.
I mean, I follow the Mavericks. I know they're in the finals with your against your Celtics.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as of we're recording this, they're up 2-0. 2-0, but I think when this gets published in a week or so,
well, who knows?
Who knows what the result? Yeah. So I'm not going to say they're definitely going to win, but I like their chances being up 2-0. Obviously,
they looked really good in the first two games. The Celtics did, but I don't know. You don't know what kind of magic Luka and Kyrie are gonna whip up. So
yeah, no doubt.
I just hope it's a great. I hope it's a great series. I hope we get.
Yeah.
I hope we get more than 4 games out of it.
Yeah, well, I think it will. I think it'll be more than 4. I see the Mavs winning probably at least 1 in Dallas anyway. Hope not 2. But no, Luka's a great player. It's that guy is he's an amazing guy. You know what's funny about him? He looks slow out there, but he just scores. I don't know what it is. He's just shifty.
It's just proof you don't have to be fast in order to be good, right?
Yeah.
So you know.
Well, on that note, we'll close on that note, Leon. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? If some prospective client, job person out there wants to get in touch with you, how would they do it?
I think email is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. I mean, they can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. So that's probably the two easiest ways. So
yeah, and your email address is on your LinkedIn profile.
It is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Very cool. So, well, Leon, thanks again for being on. I know we've talked about doing this for a long time. We finally made it happen, and I really appreciate you being on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I appreciate you and your time.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And that's a wrap for another edition of the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. Paul Delivery, your host. Until next time.